Well, good evening, this is Hound Dog Steve wishing you a very pleasant evening. And this evening I'd like to talk about the Ricky Gervais monologue at the Golden Globe Awards last Sunday. And this is quite a piece of work. I'm going to link it down below in the description, and I hope you enjoy it. It was absolutely brilliant. Now Ricky he has a great sense of humour, and he is just one of this is the most recent event of comedians that are starting to come out and speak out about political correctness and some of the madness that's come along with it, where it's really just gone to an absolute extreme with outrage, mobs, the pylon situation on Twitter, this kind of stuff. Anyone who speaks the wrong word, engages in wrong think, is just getting jumped on left, right and centre. And so I think this is a really important thing that has taken place. And I'll tell you, like I say, Ricky took aim at everybody, and especially Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, and making a point, because Apple's jumped into the morning TV with a morning show, which is showing about the right thing to do and the dignity of humanity and so on and so forth, by a company that uses sweatshops to make its phones. And how appropriate is that? But the Hollywood crowd, they are a pretty arrogant bunch, and as he said, they live in a bubble. They have absolutely no right to lecture the general public, because they really don't have any awareness of what the public goes through. And when people like Madonna fly over to Africa and adopt a child for essentially what seems to be a photo op, I'm certain that there is a nanny looking after that child, and she only makes the passing wave as she goes out of the door on her way to carry on with her life. I'm sure that that's what takes place. It's arrogance. It's hubris on steroids. And as Ricky Gervais truthfully said, all of the best actors have gone over to Netflix or HBO or Amazon Prime. And this is, Hollywood is basically going to go away, or it's going to play a much smaller role in our society. It's certainly not going to be the mover and shaker that it was, because these companies, and YouTube especially, BitChute, Patreon, Subscribestar, stuff like that. So we are really starting to diversify, and just like the media, they are going to find that they are losing their grip because they don't have a monopoly anymore. And that was the problem. That's the problem with all of this stuff. But as I say, there are other comedians. Bill Burr has a special on Netflix. So does Dave Chappelle. And it's kind of interesting because when you look at the Rotten Tomatoes score, the critics say that the comedy's not up to much, but it had a 99% approval rating, as you can see right here. And both Bill Burr and Dave Chappelle basically made it pretty clear that if you're not keen on this edgy kind of humour, your option is to leave. It's to leave. That's the way you deal with it. You don't shut everyone else down. You leave. That's the way it's always worked. And again, I saw Ricky Gervais on the Good Morning America, and he said, just because you're offended doesn't mean that you're right.
They're offended. It's that, just because you're offended, it doesn't mean you're right. It's offence is about feelings, and feelings are personal. Some people are offended by equality. So what?
But Eddie Murphy had an anniversary appearance on Saturday Night Live. It went over with a big bang, as you can see by these headlines here, and he revitalised. It was one of the most popular shows in a few years. I haven't watched Saturday Night Live in years because, I cut my teeth on Gilda Radner and Chevy Chase, Dan Aykroyd, John Candy. It was unbelievable. We'd be rolling around on the floor laughing. And probably since the year 2000, Saturday Night Live has been the most unfunny show that there is. I found it was painful the last time I watched it. And of course there is Louis C.K., there is Jimmy Carr, Jim Jeffries, Frankie Boyle. They all do this real edgy kind of humour, and there is actually a YouTube channel. It's called Comedy Unleashed, and if you want to see edgy humour, that is the place to go, men and women, and there is no little contract that you have to sign saying that you're not going to use certain words in your set. And so yeah, it's completely free fall, and it is absolutely hilarious. But there is a very important role that comedians play, and this goes back to the court jester, and I'll just read you the definition of a court jester and his role, and you'll see that it fits in very well with what happened in the Golden Globe Awards on Sunday. There used to be very few people in a court who could speak or criticise any act of the court, especially if it was directed against the Lord or the King of the court. Jester was one such person who could speak freely his mind without worrying about the consequences. Jesters were not afraid of causing offence by telling what they thought. They often used humour to jibe, mock and joke about the lords, ladies and other members of nobility of the court. Usually jesters were well educated, and they used to come from a wide variety of backgrounds. And so the court jester basically said what everybody else was thinking and wanted to say but couldn't say because they were not allowed to speak out loud. And so this is why comedians and court jesters of today play a very important role. And I think it's important that these people have stood up and said, no, we have the absolute right to freedom of speech because we are a safety valve on society. We let the pressure off. We point out stupidity. We point out foolish directions. And we do it in a funny way. We make you laugh at the silliness of the things that we've done. And of course, as I say, this is why it's such a good indicator when big name comedians come out like this and start speaking out. They're doing basically two things at the same time. The first one is, as I said, they are pointing out what everyone else can see around them. It's plainly obvious to the 80%, to the great unwashed. But they cannot speak because either they don't have the platform, or they don't have the means, or it is inappropriate in the situation that they're in if they want to maintain their livelihood or their job. Because as we've seen, this kind of pylon can get you fired in a real hurry. It can destroy your life, in fact. I mean, I've heard some absolutely brutal stories of people who've made a joke and it's gone over the wrong way, or it was a little edgy. And of course on Twitter, this kind of stuff, things are very two-dimensional. And boy, oh boy, they were fired, they were let go. Incredible, absolutely incredible. But the second important thing that the jester did and the comedians do by voicing what everybody's thinking about is they give you permission to speak about it yourself. Just as the little boy in the tale of the Emperor Who Has No Clothes, his mission, his job was very important. He told everyone that the emperor had no clothes and gave them permission to laugh at the emperor. And that is so important in breaking up this monopoly of the narrative that the media has today, and they seem to be completely in line with all of the political correctness. In fact, they emphasize the political correctness of today. And, whilst it's certainly understandable that some words could be changed, but the English language, it kind of polices itself. An example would be the N-word. And I think we all know what the N-word is. You never hear it. You never hear it in society, and yet 100 years, 120 years ago, commonplace. Commonplace. It was in books, it was a common reference term. It was an insult for the longest time, even up into the 60s, 70s. But today, I would say that use, except in certain areas, maybe in the South or other coloured folk using that term, you're not going to hear that. And why? Because it's just gone out of popular usage. And that's what happens. The English language is a moving, dynamic system, and words come in and out of fashion all the time, and it's being modified all the time just by popular usage. And so when somebody like Ricky Gervais comes out and pokes fun at some of these fatuous, arrogant people in Hollywood, and some of these fatuous producers and corporate owners, that is opening them up to ridicule, and in turn maybe making them think a little bit seriously about what they have done. And but the idea is they're jokes, They're something to laugh at. We only have one life here. Whether you come back or not, this particular existence, this is the only one you got, and there's no sequel as far as we're concerned. So we might as well have good fun, have a laugh and a joke, and stop with this ridiculous political correctness and let the English language deal with itself. And you'll find that the popular idioms will come to the fore, and those that are not used will fall to the back, and we will change naturally. As I say, when you look back over, try and read a book written by Chaucer. It's almost impossible. The English is, unintelligible to us in the 21st century. And that's going to continue on into the future. Texting, look at the abbreviations, look at the changes that have taken place just with texting. And this is our language changing, morphing and modifying itself all the time. And so these comedians have done the right thing. They've called this out for what it is. It's a bunch of nonsense. Let's let it go. Let's get on with our lives and let the English language take care of itself, which it most assuredly will do. Okay, well, if you'd like to leave a comment on that, I would love to hear what you've got to say. And in the meantime, this is Hound Dog Steve signing off, wishing you a very pleasant evening, and we'll talk very, very shortly. See you now. Bye.